Today on the How to Japanese podcast, I'll be talking about shaken and all the reasons to get a car in Japan. And in Japanese, I reminisce about the very first time I sang karaoke. You might be surprised to learn what my first song was. Once upon a time, I owned not one but two cars in Japan. One was a 1998 Mazda Familia, a slick green wagon that had an automatic starter, dual airbags, and plenty of space for luggage and humans. The other was a 1992 Daihatsu Mira, a K car. It was tiny and cramped, and the tape player had stopped working, but it did have four-wheel drive and had lasted me 2 full years in Japan. Fortunately for me, I was living in the middle of nowhere in Fukushima, so finding a parking spot for both wasn't an issue. The apartment block where I was living was owned by the town and had a gravel lot with plenty of space. This two-car life lasted a short 6 weeks in Japan. I bought the Familia in June 2007 for 250,000 yen, about $2,500, from a friend who was moving to Tokyo. By the end of July, my supervisor at the Board of Education got in touch with me and asked me when I would be getting rid of the Daihatsu. This was a subtle way of saying that I needed to get my useless hunk of white K car off the town's lawn, more or less. And that was fine. I didn't intend to hold on to it forever. During those 6 weeks, I was basically playing out the clock, waiting for the value of the car to increase. In June, there wasn't much demand for used cars. Any of the Jets who were renewing their contracts had been in their towns for nearly a full year and already had plenty of opportunities to pick up a car. Anyone going home had likely already offloaded their cars for whatever cost they could. New Jets would be arriving at the end of July and August, so I just held on to it and then put out a few messages on the local Jet forums. I was looking to get 40,000 yen, a measly $400 for a car that I'd initially paid $2,700 for. I'm not exactly sure what price I could have gotten from a Japanese car dealership, but given the reputation of the used car industry on a global level, my gut tells me it wouldn't have been much. But why had the value of the cars cratered in the expat community? Cars were going for $200 or less at that point. The reason is shaken. Shaken is the commonly used term for Jidosha Shaken Toroku Seido, which literally means Automobile Inspection Registration System. This is the inspection system that Japan uses to check vehicles every 1 to 3 years, depending on the type of vehicle and how new it is. A car owner can go through the inspection process on their own, have the dealer take the car for inspection, or have a mechanic take the car for inspection. However you do it, shaken often ends up costing hundreds of thousands of yen, thousands of dollars in repairs or services. The inspection is so thorough that you'll likely have to take a day or two off work so that you can do the initial evaluation, figure out what needs to be fixed or replaced, have that work done or do it yourself, and then have the car pass inspection. I have a theory that shaken is also a market distorter, at least within a low-income expat community, such as the Jet community. For someone who has the income to purchase a new car, the cost of shaken represents around 2 to 5% of the cost of the car 3 years after you purchased it. It's not cheap, but it's still a marginal cost. Teachers in the Jet program, on the other hand, bring in around $30,000 a year and rarely buy new cars. They, myself included, look for the cheapest option. The Daihatsu cost me 270,000 yen, around $2,700. So when I paid for shaken, it cost me nearly half the original cost of the car. It felt much less marginal. The idea of having to pay for your car once when you first buy it, and then again 2 years later, just doesn't make sense to English teachers in Japan. And many of them were living month to month when I was teaching. Which is why the cost of the vehicle itself plummets. It's not an asset, it's a ticking time bomb of financial liability. Despite this, I am here to tell you 3 things about cars in Japan. The first is this. Shaken isn't that much money. Based on data from the Japan Automobile Manufacturers Association, the average cost of shaken is 57,913 yen for 2 years. Even if you're paying double that, it may seem like a large amount of money, but take that $1,200 and divide it by 24 months. That's only $50 a month, or 5,000 yen. I feel like that's well within most Jets' means, as long as you're budgeting for it. My advice is this. Go to the 100 yen store, buy an envelope, and put 5,000 yen in that envelope every month. Hide the envelope at the bottom of your sock drawer. In 2 years, when it's time to pay for shaken, you'll be able to hand over that envelope stuffed with cash to a mechanic with a smile on your face because it hasn't affected your financial situation at all. My second thought about cars in Japan is this. Shaken shouldn't decrease the value of the car itself. If you're looking to buy a car, don't let it affect what you're willing to pay, especially if it's a nice car. You also shouldn't be afraid to sell your car for a decent price. The remaining inspection years left on your car should absolutely be included in the cost of the car, but the underlying car itself has value. When I eventually sold my Familia, I sold it for 300,000 yen. That included over a year of shaken and a very solid, reliable car. My third thought about cars in Japan is this: get one. Don't let anything hold you back. The only reason you wouldn't want one is if you live in a major city and can walk or commute to work in under 30 minutes. For the first month or so of Jet, I biked to work. It took 10 minutes and I could pick up groceries in the basket on the front. It was mostly fine, but I started the process of getting a car shortly after I arrived because I knew it would be getting colder and would eventually snow. I couldn't imagine biking to work with a foot of snow on the ground. I realized this was the correct decision when I got home from shopping one day and found that a carton of milk I bought was leaking after being jostled in my mamachari basket. More importantly, my cars gave me some amazing memories. I drove them all over northern Japan. During spring break in 2007, I went up to the Shimokita Peninsula in Aomori, to the northernmost point in Honshu. On the way back south, I stopped at Tsukayu Onsen. It was March. Winter was slowly starting to break in Fukushima, but Aomori was still cold, and up in the mountains about 45 minutes away from Aomori City, the highways were lined with snowbanks 6 feet tall. Tsukayu Onsen is a very traditional wooden building featuring what they call a 1,000-person bath. The bath is dark and foggy, and the water has a sharp, sour acidity to it, which gives the onsen its name. On my way home, I took the rural highways around Lake Towada before getting back on the expressway. It was an awesome trip. But I also have great memories from more banal trips, such as a drive I took to Niigata City, which was just 2 hours west of me. The winter of 2006 was very snowy and cold, which ended up keeping me trapped in my small town for extended periods of time. One weekend in February, the sun finally came out, and I had slept off most of the cold I was recovering from. So I spontaneously decided to get on the road and drive west after having my oil changed. Highway 49, 49 Gosen as it's known in Japanese, runs west across Japan, cutting through a number of mountain passes. It follows the Agano River through western Fukushima and Niigata, snaking its way between and sometimes through mountains. There are sights to see dotted here and there along the highway: a mushroom farm, an old cedar tree called the Samurai Cedar, and little stores and restaurants. I did some shopping at wholesale stores on the outskirts of the city, and then bought a couple CDs in the city center, as well as a Niigata Starbucks mug that I still have and use regularly. Then I drove home, listening to new music, feeling fulfilled, and yet also a little lonely. I made it home in time to watch the variety show Mecha Ike. For whatever reason, nearly 15 years later, that day has stuck in my mind so vividly. I remember exploring all the little grocery stores. I can remember driving alongside the Agano River. I can remember the tunnels and the forests and the rice fields on the plains as I descended into Niigata City. I think these are the reasons you get a car in Japan. It's hard to put a price on memories, and the pain of the financial costs will hurt less than the pain of regret at everything you could have seen and done in your car. 今日カラオケについて話したいと思いますが、リスナーの皆さん、人生初めてのカラオケ覚えていますか？僕は明らかに覚えていますが、カラオケボックスでもカラオケバーでもなかったです。ちょっと変に聞こえるかもしれないけど、ホテルのカラオケでした。ボールルームというかなんというか、とりあえずホテルの広い部屋で歓迎会だったので、人数は結構多かったです。この前のエピソードでは岡山のインターンシップについて語りましたが、その夏でした。今からもう約20年前の話です。インターンは僕を含めて4人いて、その会社4社からの代表者数人、ロータリーの担当者と会員も何人いました。全部で50人ぐらいかな。歓迎会ではどんな料理があったのか、誰がどのようなスピーチをしたのか、実はあまり覚えてません。自分は何かの形で自己紹介をしたと思うんですけど、確かではないです。はっきり覚えているのは、歓迎会のちょうど終わりする前の盛り上がる様子でした。スピーチはすでに終わっていて、みんなもう十分食べて飲んだところで、急に音楽が再生されました。アメリカ人誰でもわかる曲でした。そうです。アメリカの国歌でした。 タイトルの和訳は星条旗なんです。The Star-Spangled Banner。思い出すと笑ってしまいます。誰かにマイクが運ばれて歌うしかない状況になりました。そこで歌いました。僕は20歳だったので、お酒との経験は長くはなかったけど、経験ゼロではありませんでした。なのでゆっくり飲んでいました。酔っ払い具合がちょうど良かったです。歌えないほどではなかったけど、みんなの前で歌うのは怖くなかったです。4人の中でアメリカ人が3人いて、僕が少し歌ってからその2人にマイクを回したと思いますが、詳しく覚えていません。その後、さすがにジョン・デンバーのカントリーロードが流されましたが、タイトル以外歌詞知らなかったから歌いませんでした。その時点までに歌うことは嫌でした。恥ずかしがり屋で声が低くてかっこいいロックの歌をよく歌えませんでした。だが、日本でカラオケを挑戦することは楽しかったです。その夏、恥ずかしくても歌をいっぱい歌ってみました。ロータリーの担当者は演歌が大好きだったので、演歌も日本の60年代、70年代のポップ音楽がすっと頭に染み込んできました。帰国する前に CD も買ってたまにアメリカで聴いていましたが、iPhone と iPod の前の時代だったので、運転しながら聴きたかったら、ソニーのディスクマンを持って運転するしかありませんでした。3年後、ジェットで田舎に住んでいて、車をよく運転していました。その時、もっと聞くようになりました。運転する際、その日本語の歌詞の意味が徐々に理解できました。例えば、石原裕次郎の恋の街札幌。最初の歌詞は非常にわかりやすい日本語です。時計台の下であって、私の恋は始まりました。大学1年生でもわかるでしょ？その続き、その声の影響がわかります。初めて声を知った私、優しい空を見上げて泣いたの。いろんな文法レッスンがあります。修飾するフレーズ、知るとわかるの違い、文末のの役割など、本当に様々です。最近、小級の日本語授業を振り返っています。僕が大学1年生、2年生の頃、歌を聴かされたとか、歌詞を覚えさせられたことはなかったと思います。少し残念に思います。歌は本当に役に立ちます。音楽が言葉を覚えやすくしてくれます。歌詞を覚えたら文法も意味もごく自然に分かってきます。一番言いたいのは日本語で音楽を聴いてください。カラオケを歌ってみてください。歌詞をググって意味を調べてみてください。今すぐ。僕はこの前演歌のベストヒットについて書きました。ブログにリンクを載せておきますので、ぜひその演歌を聴いてみてください。もちろん現代のポップでも全然問題ありませんが、もしどこから始まるかわからないリスナーがいらっしゃいましたら、ぜひその演歌のブログを読んでいただければと思います。Thanks for listening. You can find How to Japanese on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and Substack. And we'll see you next week. それではまた来週。